On January 29, 1979, Brenda Spencer would be watching TV in her San Diego home when she would hear a noise outside. She would get up and walk to the window to look out, and what would happen next would shock the nation. This is the story of Brenda Spencer and the Grover Cleveland school shooting. Brenda Spencer was born on April 3, 1962, in San Diego, California, to her parents Wallace and Dot Spencer. Brenda had 2 older siblings, and for the most part they lived a normal life. Her mother would say in an interview later that life was good. In 1972, all that would change when Dot and Wallace would get a divorce due to Wallace's infidelity. The courts would grant full custody of their 3 children to their emotionally distant father, and with that, the Brenda who was once a normal happy child, who was a bit of a tomboy, and who was active in several sports would start to vanish, and a new troubled Brenda would start to appear. After the divorce, Brenda and her father would live in poverty. They would move into a home on Lake Atlan Drive in the neighborhood of San Carlos, where they would share a mattress on the floor of their home, which would be littered with empty alcohol bottles and other trash. Over the years, Brenda would continue a downward spiral. She started doing drugs, drinking alcohol, committing crimes such as theft, and showed major hostility towards law enforcement, even going as far as to brag to whoever would listen at her school that she had once shot one, although there are no actual records of her ever doing this. Brenda would also show no interest in school. She would rarely show up, and when she did, she would just be in her own world. Brenda would eventually be sent to a facility for troubled youth due to her truancy, and while there, the staff would inform her parents that she was suicidal. Her father would show no interest in what he was being told, and her mother, who had been estranged from them since the divorce, did nothing to help either. In the summer of 1978, Brenda would be arrested for burglary and shooting out the windows of the Grover Cleveland Elementary School that was across the street from her home. Brenda was known to walk around the neighborhood with her BB gun hunting birds, so knowing her reputation, no one was surprised that she would actually do this to the school. Brenda would be placed on probation for her crime, and in December of 1978, her probation officer would arrange a psychiatric evaluation, and it would be recommended to her father that Brenda be placed in a mental hospital to treat her depression. But her father, not caring, would refuse to do that. On Christmas of 1978, her father would buy her a Ruger 1022 semi-automatic .22 caliber rifle with a telescopic sight and 500 rounds of ammo to go with it. Brenda would later say that it was like her father was wanting her to kill herself because she had asked for a radio and instead he bought her a gun. On a Monday morning on the 29th of January 1979, Brenda, who was now a junior at Patrick Henry High School, would decide to skip school for the day like she's done in the past and stay home and watch TV. Brenda would hear a familiar noise coming from outside and decided to get up and go look out the window, and what she would see were the children of Grover Cleveland Elementary lining up at the gate waiting for Principal Burton Wagg to open the gate and let them in for the day. While watching the children talk and laugh, Brenda would get an idea, and that idea to her would finally be big enough to get her on TV, just like she had been telling her fellow classmates she would do for so long. Brenda would go and grab the .22 caliber rifle she had gotten for Christmas, and she would proceed to slide the window in her home open and take aim at the children who were now walking through the open gate of the school, which was about 150 feet away from her home. Brenda would see 9-year-old Cam Miller wearing blue, and she would decide to shoot him first because that was her favorite color. Cam would be shot in the back with the bullet exiting through his chest, and he would fall to the ground, and chaos would begin to erupt as Brenda continued shooting the children and anyone else in her way. The shooting would continue for 20 minutes until police finally blocked her line of sight with a garbage truck, forcing her to stop and barricade herself inside her home. By the time the shooting was finished, Brenda had shot 11 people. 8 children, as well as a police officer, Robert Robb, would all survive with injuries. As for Principal Wagg and the school custodian Mike Sucher, they would both be shot and killed while trying to help children, and they would be dead before first responders could arrive. Officers would surround Brenda's home, and negotiations for her to come out would begin. During the negotiations, a reporter who would be going through a phone book calling all the numbers to the homes on that street would finally dial Brenda's number and get an answer. She would ask Brenda, "Why did you do this?" And Brenda would say, I don't like Mondays, and this livens up the day." After nearly 7 hours of negotiating and multiple threats from Brenda saying she would come out shooting, Brenda would finally surrender peacefully to the promise of a Burger King Whopper meal. The chaos she had created would finally be over, and Brenda would be taken into custody. Brenda would be charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 9 counts of attempted murder, but would end up giving up her chance for a jury trial, which gives her the ability to tell her side of the story, and instead would take a plea deal of 2 counts of first-degree murder and assault with a deadly weapon. With this deal, Brenda would receive 25 to life with the possibility of parole. Brenda resides in the California Institute for Women and has been denied parole 5 times. Her next hearing was scheduled for this past Thursday, August 18th, 2022. Brenda's name would also become known worldwide when Bob Geldof, the then lead singer of Boomtown Rats, would write a song named after Brenda's infamous phrase she would tell the reporter the day of the shooting. The song's name was "I Don't Like Mondays," and it would become a huge success. Brenda even wrote Bob saying, quote, "She was glad she'd done it because I'd made her famous." He would go on to say, "It's not a good thing to live with." Brenda became famous for being the first female school shooter in American history, and many believe she laid the foundation for the modern-day school shootings that we unfortunately have to be forced to live with today. That's it for today's story, guys. Do you think that Brenda Spencer laid that foundation for all the future school shootings that we know today in our time? If you made it this far, please leave a like, subscribe, please comment. It'll really help the channel out. And until next time, talk to you guys later.